I was legit laying on my bed and I was just minding my own business on my phone. Then out of nowhere, I end up seeing this girl sit on my face, bro, and she didn't have pants on. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba and welcome back to another really embarrassing, but I gotta say awkward story. So this story all starts off back in my grade 10 year, and I'm not gonna lie, in grade 10, I was a major player to the point where I'm not gonna lie to you, a lot of girls knew about me and they really wanted to test my limits. But before all that happened, I remember one time I was walking down the school hallway and I noticed that the gym door was wide open. Now, the only reason the gym doors in my school would be wide open was if there was like a certain game going on or a practice, and I decided to go in there and see what was up. When I went in there, I saw that there was a ton of volleyball girls just practicing for their game against our school. And boy, was I excited. Guys, I'm going to be brutally honest with you. If there's any sport that girls are really hot in, is volleyball and softball. I swear, those are like the main sports that I gotta say have the most attractive girls in it. And I remember since I saw this, I ended up texting the boys group chat saying, yo boys, there's a ton of girls right now in our gym and they're from a different school and they're playing volleyball, bro. And I ended up going in there and sitting on the bleachers and just watching their practice. I remember as I sat there, all the girls looked at me confused of why I was sitting there by myself until like 5 minutes later when all the boys came. And that's when they realized that we just wanted to see them play. And I remember as me and all the boys were sitting down, we were all just pointing out like which one was the hot one, which one was ugly, you know, just being boys, I should say, until out of nowhere, I remember one of the girls that ended up taking a break and decided to go sit on the bench ended up basically seeing us on the bleachers, and she walked over to us. She walked over to us and said, hey, like, you guys from this school? Yeah, what's going on? Oh, nothing. I was just like curious, like, is you guys' school volleyball team that good? Not really. I mean, not against you, I don't think. I remember this girl started giggling after I said that, and then when the other girls saw that, more girls started to crowd around us boys. And obviously from there, we started basically talking to them, mingling, and kind of flirting with them. And I remember one of the girls that originally came up to us in the first place sat beside me and said, I was just wondering, like, what's your snap? And one thing led to another. I ended up giving her my social media account. Obviously at this point, I realized that this girl had some interest in me, but at the same time, golly, did she have a nice peach. And I remember as I was in the middle of talking to these girls, out of nowhere, the bell rang and me and all the boys had to get to our next class. But I'm not gonna lie, when after school came around, that's when things got real. Because right after school, I remember that's when the volleyball game of the girls that are from the other school and our school ended up basically versing each other, and a lot of people ended up showing up for that volleyball game. And I remember when the girls saw me and the guys come in to watch their game after school, they were really happy. And I remember one of the girls actually ended up running up to me that I got their number earlier saying, Bubba, if we win this game, are you down to like maybe like go out to the mall after school? I remember I ended up shaking my head yes, and she ended up going into the game, and she actually ended up playing her game. And after an hour later, after totally demolishing her school, she walked up to me and said, well, I think you owe me bubble tea now. And me and her, we ended up basically getting into my car and leaving. We ended up going to the mall and stuff, and I remember she was still wearing her volleyball outfit, which really is attractive. I don't know what it is with me in uniforms, but golly, do I say it really gets me going. And I remember me and her, we basically ended up going to get bubble tea. We walked around and I got to know this girl somewhat. But when it came to talking about like her to know me, it was really weird because it seemed like she already knew so much about me without me having to say anything. And at that point, I remember she looked at me and said, so like, Bubba, like I heard like you're really good at doing the devil's tango. Wait, where'd you hear that from? Oh, like, you know, I just heard it around, I guess. Well, I mean, guess I am. Wait, I'm confused. How'd you hear about that? Oh, you know, girls' locker room. Wait, what? At that point, I started to ask more questions and she started to get in detail about how in the girls' locker room, a lot of girls ended up talking about me and how I did the devil's tango with like most of them, which to be fair, I will say I did do a lot of the volleyball girls in my high school. But I remember after her telling me all this stuff, she ended up looking at me and saying, so Bubba, do you want to like maybe like, you know, prove it to me? Prove what to you? That you know how to do the devil's tango. I mean, like, I can, I guess. Sweet, here, I'll tell you my address. And one thing led to another. I remember me and her, we ended up driving straight to her place to go do the devil's tango. Obviously, one thing I will say was that this was really just common for me, I guess. I don't know, I got so used to this, but the one thing I felt really off about was that this girl kept pressuring me to do it with her, and it kind of felt really weird. Like, I like doing it when I know I achieved a goal, but this girl was trying to achieve goals with me that, to be honest, really just kind of turned me off. Like, I didn't really want to hang out with this girl after that, even though she was super attractive. After hearing how desperate she was to do the devil's tango with me just to prove a point, it made me feel weird. But as me and her, we ended up getting to her place and we ended up laying down and just kind of like talking and stuff. And one thing led to another. She kept waiting for me to initiate doing the devil's tango. Obviously me though, like I said earlier, I wasn't in the mood, nor did I want to do it after everything she told me. Like I felt really gross. And I think after a while, this girl realized that and she ended up getting up and basically like walking around her house and getting a snack. And me, I was just laying in the bed, just going on my phone, just hanging out. But then out of nowhere, I ended up hearing a weird noise and boom, right away, I ended up seeing the peach of this girl literally right in front of me. And she sat on my face, bro. She literally was suffocating me. And the whole time I just kept going, like I was getting purely suffocated from this girl. I remember she kept saying like over and over, like, do you like that, daddy? Do you like that, baba? And I felt so grossed out and I'm like, what are you doing? Stop it. And I basically ended up pushing her off. When I pushed her off, I remember she looked at me saying, what's your problem? Like, I thought you liked that. No, I'm not in the mood, bro. And that's when I ended up basically getting up and I actually ended up leaving. I left out of there so quick and I drove home and I realized that if a girl really is desperate to do the devil's tango, chances are don't go for the ones that are too desperate. Maybe just go for the ones that you actually achieve through Riz or through actually pulling them, because that way it feels more like a success than someone forcing you and sitting on your face, I guess. I don't really know. Okay, so honestly, first thing I want to mention is I know what the title looks like and you guys cannot blame me because this is literally what happened in my life and actually in the story that I'm going to tell you guys right now, because you know my life and these stories are real. And if you guys don't believe me, I mean, like, hell, I'm not hiding anything. I'm an open book. So if you guys want to message me on Instagram, join the Discord server, or even just, you know, talk to me on stream, I am down to talk and give you guys evidence, proof, anything, just to make sure you guys know these are real. When I tell these stories, don't get me wrong, I do have an over dramatic voice and I do yell all the time in the microphone just because, you know, I'm trying to get the message through to you guys. Because let's be real here, no one really understands when you talk like this and just say, yo, what's going on, guys? Like, it's not like, no, it's not funny. It's not entertaining. But anyways, like I usually say, join the Discord server, you know, follow me on all socials, and let's get straight into this story. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to another crazy story. So today's story, like the title says, is something totally insane. And honestly, the way this led up to happening was really awkward, but at the same time, very interesting. So back when I was in high school, I was a theater kid. Funny enough, yes, I used to do theater back when I was a kid, because if you guys don't remember, I had a really bad stutter. And me stuttering was one of my biggest issues. That's why, you know, in these videos, I get really straight to the point and why actually somewhat of my stutter is being fixed. Many of you guys actually messaged me on Instagram saying, hey, Bubba, like, how did you fix your stutter? And I literally say, you know, I took courses, I practiced talking to myself in the mirror, and sometimes I talk to myself in the shower. Yeah, I know, I'm weird. I get it. But going on though, so I remember I was in theater class and I remember we had this whole like weird play going on, and it was a play about, you know, basically we had to recreate a wedding scene from a certain movie. I have no idea which movie this was. Honestly, all I remember is that it was really cringy and chicks loved it. So it definitely was like some kind of chick flick. I don't remember. But going on, I remember when most people got really excited about doing a wedding ceremony kind of scene, we had to wait for our roles and stuff and, you know, do the best we can to get the part that each person wanted. Obviously, most people wanted, you know, to have a special role, which was, you know, the main character, which don't get me wrong, who doesn't want to be a main character in things? And some people just wanted to be in the background and just kind of like not really associate with themselves into it, because some people just took the course for credit, which I think we all are people that do that. Let's be real here. We just take courses just to take credits so we can get the hell out of there. But going on, I remember going for the audition and, you know, basically trying out, just, you know, basically in this class did my false audition, which is basically just, you know, me reading a script and just kind of going off saying like, oh, so like today, like, you know, I out thou thee love someone ye he, I don't know, some cringy stuff. Let's be real here. Like the channel's cringe enough, so I don't really have to get into it, but going on. So we end up going through it and reading through, and, you know, basically I did my audition. My audition was all right. It wasn't great. It wasn't good. I wasn't trying because let's be real here, I didn't actually study it because I was hanging out with a chick the other day, but it was okay. Then of course, you know, other people went on and stuff. We had some people that were really cringy. We had some people that were really funny, and it was just a disaster. I'm sorry, sitting down for 8 hours, seeing like a big fat kid in a fedora walk up on stage going, I love you, out thou D. I love you, kiss me. Like, it's just, it made me want to puke in my mouth and just like swallow it again. I don't know why. It just wasn't it. But then I remember there was one chick who actually ended up going on stage. And this chick, I won't lie to you, she was ugly. Yes, I know, it's crazy. An ugly chick. This is the first time I think I've actually mentioned like, hey, this chick was really, really ugly. But I'm sorry, guys. This chick was ugly, ugly, ugly. Like, think of like a giant like watermelon and then like rolling on the stage and then just, yeah, it just wasn't fun. And I remember she just kind of like, you know, set her part. She was actually really trying, and I'll give her this much. For a girl of what she looked like, she really had a good heart, and she really tried in her stage audition thingy. Yeah. Okay, I think that's the most credit I'm gonna give her here. But going on, so she was like basically trying her audition, and you know, she did outstanding, and she really tried her hardest. And I remember the next day when we all came back into class and we sat down in a circle, and we, you know, we did our warm-ups of, you know, our speech and stuff. The teacher walks in and says, here are the parts that are going to be given out for this amazing play. He puts the charts up on the wall. All the kids start running in there, and me, as I walk up there, my buddy taps me on the back saying, hey, congrats on the husband. What do you mean the husband? What? I'm getting married? What? I look at the play and I see that I was the one chosen to be married. Or like not literally be married, but I mean like I had basically the second best role, which was, you know, the guy who does get married in the scene. And I remember looking over, I'm like, oh, okay, like, you know, that's cool. I wonder, you know, what chick is gonna be the person I'm marrying in the play. Now in my mind, I was hoping it was one of the hot chicks in my class, because I'm gonna be honest, there were some really hot girls in theater class. Like I have more stories on that, but we're gonna move on from that, and you know, it's a story for another day. Then after a while, I hear a loud scream, and this scream was no joke. Like it was literally like it was a disgusting scream. And I look over on my left and I see that the chick that I, let's just say, wasn't a fan of and was pretty, can we just call her a watermelon? No, I could get canceled. Okay, never mind. Anyways, going on. The chick that did the audition, that was kind-hearted, basically got the part. She got the part. She got the part that I was going to be married to. Now, there was one of two things I could have done. One, I could have either, you know, totally skipped school and just ran away from class and just decided never to go back. Or two, I grabbed my pair of balls and I decided to actually use them and decide to just, you know, do it. Sometimes in life, you just gotta say, do it. You know, even if you don't want to do things, you just gotta do it. You know, that's the kind of mindset people need to have nowadays. Just say yes and do it. Of course, not to all things. That sounds really inappropriate. Wait a minute. Give me a sec here. Going on, though, I remember all my friends were kind of laughing at me throughout lunchtime afterwards, kind of saying like, oh, look, you have to kiss her. Get wrecked. Or basically like, you know, making fun of me for what was going on. And to be honest, I didn't want to do it. I really just didn't want to do it. It got to the point where me saying, I'm gonna do it. Just do it. Just do it, Bubba. You got this. Became, no, I'm literally going to jump off a cliff. Like, I cannot do this. So one thing led to another, and I decided to confront her and say, hey, I'm gonna be giving up my role in the play. I walked up to her. I sat down with her, and I said, hey, so like, listen, like, I think you're great and all, but like, honestly, like, I don't think I can do this play with you. It's just like, I don't really like want like the second best role. It's just like, it's not you, it's me. I just can't do it. It's just not in me. And she looks over at me and says, why? Is it because you're not interested in me? Are you really doing this to me right now? Like, are you serious? And I start panicking. I'm sorry. When you have a giant girl sitting beside you on a bench and you're explaining to her that you don't want to be in a play with her, apparently they start to fume like animals. So I remember she got up and she literally kind of like started like yelling at me, going like, it's because I'm big, isn't it? You don't want to embarrass yourself because you're your friends. I know what you're doing here. And I felt so bad. Like, I actually felt so bad. But then she decided to go, how do I put this? Sicko mode. She literally ended up grabbing me by the shoulders. And I'm not joking when I say this. Like, she had like man hands. Like, she was like going crazy. Like, I never felt like a woman have such good grip before. And she literally picked me up, not literally picked me up, but she grabbed me and basically threw me on the ground, and then she just decided to do it. She did what I thought wasn't possible. She decided to literally sit on my face. Now, warning, this girl was wearing booty shorts because apparently she has like body appreciation, which, don't get me wrong, it's a good thing when you actually appreciate your body, but like, I don't know, she like was doing some body appreciation, but that's not the point. She literally sat on my face with booty shorts on. Like, booty shorts, bro. Like, I'm not joking when I say this. Like, she literally had her butt cheeks out there. Like, her peach was out, and she sat on my damn face. Now, I won't lie. Sometimes I would have liked it, but this one time, like, my nose was squished, and I have a big nose because I'm brown, okay? But she sat on my nose. She just sat there, and she just laid it on me. And by laid it on me, I don't mean she farted or anything. Don't get me wrong. That would have killed me. I wouldn't be here today. But she just sat on me and just started yelling, hitting my chest like a gorilla. Like, I'm not joking, bro. It's kind of like, picture me laying down and then like basically a girl sitting on me and like her facing like the rest of my body and legs, and her just basically slammed down like Donkey Kong. Yeah, that was basically what was happening to me at this moment. And all my friends were looking over, and all my friends pulled out their phones and started recording. It was so embarrassing because they posted it on their Snapchat story, which didn't help me at all. And I remember the next like minute afterwards, she got up, she turned around, she's like, "That's for hurting my feelings," and she ran away. I honestly couldn't think of what the heck was going on. In my head, I was freaking out. I was scared. I got scarred for life. This was like a whole new world for me. So I remember that exact day I skipped class and I didn't end up doing the play. I lost credits, but at the same time it was worth it because I just didn't want to deal with that. Okay, so back when I was in high school, one thing I do realize is that there was a lot of fat chicks in my high school, and I know a lot of people right now in the comments down below are probably going to be like, "Oh, Bubba, you shouldn't make fun of fat people." Well, I'm going to tell you this right now, I will make fun of fat people, and honestly, I will tell you this much, I am feeling a little base today, so make sure you guys do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you guys want more stories like this one. But other than that, let's get straight into it. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to another insane story. So like the title says, yes, this ended up happening to me in the most weirdest way possible. It all starts back when I was in grade 9. You see, in grade 9, I was taking a theater class, and the reason I was taking theater is because I had a really bad stutter back when I was in high school. And in this theater class, I remember partway through the semester, there was a girl in our class who was, well, really obese. Now, I'm not gonna lie, she did get picked on a lot, not only from me but from many others, and a lot of people were claiming that, you know, basically all the people that made fun of her were fat phobic and that the leadership team and the LGBTQ community would like be there and support her and stuff, when in reality I think the only thing that needed support was for her to hit the damn gym. But other than that, I remember back when I was in high school, I was like pretty skinny, I'm not gonna lie, and she would always like try to make a comeback at me saying, "Oh, like you're anorexic." Yeah, but at least I can walk without making a stomp on the ground, is what I would usually say. I'm not gonna lie, after that comment though, I did end up getting in trouble and going to the principal's office. And so I remember one day out of nowhere, I remember in the middle of theater class, I was talking to this girl that was apparently friends with the fat girl in our theater class. And basically she was telling me how, you know, she was picked on her whole entire life and the only way she resolved to herself was stress eating. Now me, I never understood stress eating. Like when I'm stressed out about something, I try to figure out a way to fix the problem, but I guess eating is an alternative for some people. So I remember I basically ended up saying like how I would basically start being nice to the girl and that I will stop picking on her. Even though I kept doing it in my head, I knew it was probably not right for me to make fun of her and kept saying it. So I remember one time in theater class, me and her, we ended up pairing up for a project where we had to like speak lines to each other and like do like some kind of, I don't know, role play sort of thing. And I remember basically me and her, we ended up doing a scenario where we were a couple. So me, obviously, I ended up doing my role, and I'm not gonna lie, in theater, I aced it. I was really good at acting like something I'm not. But anyways, going on, I remember when me and her, we were like basically going through the lines, she ended up saying something that really made me feel queasy. She ended up saying, "Oh, like, do you want to like make out during one of the scenes?" Wait, what? Is what I said. To be honest, now a lot of people might call me fat phobic for this, but every time I looked at her mouth, I always felt like she was gonna eat me. And not to mention, she weighed double my body weight back in high school. So obviously for me, I decided to like kind of like tell her no, like, you know, I'm not really like interested in doing that. And she took that offensively. I remember right after I said no to her, she ended up going to the teacher saying, "Oh my goodness, Bubba doesn't want to be my partner. He doesn't want to fit the role properly. He's literally gonna make me fail this project. Can I change my partner?" What do you mean I'm gonna make you fail the project? You want to kiss me, is what I ended up saying. And the teacher ended up sending me back to the principal's office just because her feelings were gonna get hurt if I didn't. It's crazy how some people get their way just because they have a problem with themselves. Anyways, I remember later on that week when it was lunchtime, I was basically sitting down eating my grilled cheese sandwich that my mom made me. And as I was eating it, I remember out of nowhere, I ended up seeing my friend walk up to me saying, "Yo, Bubba, I got some crazy news to tell you, bro. You're gonna laugh at this." And I ended up asking him, "Oh, like what's going on?" He ended up telling me that apparently out of nowhere that the fat girl in our theater class ended up having a crush on me. Now, don't get me wrong. I do appreciate that, you know, there are girls out there that have a crush on me. But at the same time, if I'm not interested in you whatsoever and even gone to the point of making fun of you, why in the world do you have a crush on me? So I remember I looked at my friend and told him, "Bro, you gotta be pranking me, right?" And right as you know it, out of nowhere, on the left side of the cafeteria near the entrance, I ended up seeing the fat girl looking at me and basically waving at me in the most weirdest way possible. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I basically at that point almost puked up my grilled cheese sandwich that I was enjoying so much. But at the same time though, I didn't want to be mean, so I ended up waving back. When I waved back, I remember she ended up giggling, freaking out, and stomping her way to the theater classroom since that was our next class. At that point, I knew if I went to theater, something bad's gonna happen, and I don't want it to happen, but
you know what? It is what it is. I remember the bell rang for lunch to be over, and I ended up going to my theater classroom. And when I walked inside, I remember I saw all the students sitting in a circle waiting for the teacher. And apparently, for some reason, the teacher wasn't actually there. We don't know where the teacher went. I have no idea what happened to her, but for some reason, the teacher didn't show up. So basically from there, I remember me and the class decided to do something to basically wait for the teacher. Some kids wanted to do exercises. Some kids wanted to do their own homework that they missed out on. But then out of nowhere, I ended up hearing the fat girl in our classroom yell, "Oh my goodness, I have a great idea. Why don't we all play truth or dare?" What is what I ended up saying. And that's when I knew things were going to go south. Basically, I remember right after she ended up yelling that we should play truth or dare, I was kind of freaking out thinking this is probably the dumbest idea ever. Because obviously I don't want to play truth or dare with a fat girl, right? Because that could lead to a lot of things. And from all the times I play truth or dare, it usually ends up me being in a bedroom with them doing the devil's tango. But basically, I remember from there, we all ended up sitting in a circle feeling bad for the fat girl because no one really listened to her. So we ended up just listening to her anyway because out of pity, I guess. And when we all sat in a circle, I remember we all ended up basically playing this game. We all ended up going around saying truth or dare. Some dares were lick the wall. Some were throw a chair at a door or something. I don't know. We ended up doing a lot of dumb stuff. But at the same time, we were only in high school. And then I remember afterwards, right after that whole thing happened, the fat girl ended up asking me a question saying, "Okay, Bubba, a truth or dare?" I remember I looked at her and I knew if I said dare, she's gonna make me go under her rules or something. So I ended up saying, I'll take truth. Is what I ended up saying. And she ended up looking at me saying, "Okay, what's your favorite feature about me?" As much as I wanted to say nothing at all, I basically ended up saying how I liked her shirt. And then she ended up responding back saying, "Oh, I bet you'll like it off, don't you?" And ended up basically raising her eyebrows at me in the most awkward way possible. At this point, I was really actually willing to gurp in my mouth and just basically end this whole game and, I don't know, maybe just figure out something else. But after a while, a lot of people started getting the hint that this girl liked me, the really obese one in our classroom. So my buddy thought it was funny to basically ask her to do a dare to basically kiss me in front of everyone. I remember I ended up basically standing up saying, "No, I am not doing this whatsoever." And out of nowhere, a rhinoceros ended up walking up to me, aka the fat girl, and ended up basically kissing me on the lips. But not only that, I ended up tumbling and falling on my back while she laid on top of me, and I almost ran out of oxygen and passed out. I thought I was gonna die. I was literally suffocating. But as she was laying on top of me, I remember this girl ended up putting her giant, enormous Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson hands on my eggplant. She literally grabbed it and squeezed as she was laying on top of me. Now, at this point, I don't know what was suffocating more, me or my eggplant, but I knew I was gonna die. I remember everyone in the classroom was just kind of staring at us thinking, whoa, was this supposed to happen? And basically thinking that this was some kind of romantic scene in a movie. But that wasn't even the worst part. I remember the teacher ended up walking in, our theater teacher that was supposed to be there a long time ago, ends up walking in and saying, "Oh, are you guys practicing for a scene? Are you trolling right now?" In my mind, I was thinking, what scene could we possibly be practicing? 365 days of obesity? At this point, I knew I was literally suffocating and I didn't know what to do. So I remember out of nowhere, I decided to do the one thing that almost every female would basically stay away from, and that was farting. Yes, I literally decided to fart as loud as I can, and since my butt was facing the ground, you already know the ground trembled. I remember everyone ended up hearing my fart, and they all looked at me saying, "Oh my goodness, Bubba, did you fart?" And at that point, I remember the fat chick ended up finally letting go of my eggplant that was enormous, and she literally said, "Oh, Bubba, you're so stinky," and basically ended up running away. Thank God that was the tactic to get her running away from me, because honestly, at that point, I knew my farts were a savior. My farts saved the day. Now, one thing I will mention before ending this story is that I don't condone bullying, but at the same time, if you need to bully someone to get their way, probably for the best. Anyways, guys, that is basically it for today's story. Make sure you guys do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And like I always say, follow for more embarrassing stories. Peace out, guys.